Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. I hope I enjoyed your breakouts yesterday and this morning, and had time to visit with the community college exhibitors. So we have another speaker today from UCSD, and it is my honor to get to introduce her. So I would now like to introduce Dr. Helen Griffith. She has over 20 years of experience as an educator and principal, specializing in leadership development, school transformation, and educational entrepreneurship. She earned her bachelor's degree in communications from UC San Diego and her master's in educational technology and doctorate in educational leadership from UCSD. Go Aztecs. She is currently the educational director of the Preuss School at UCSD that supports low-income first-generation students in pursuit of their careers. Until 2012, Dr. Griffith was the founding executive director and CEO of E3 Civic High School, a public charter and school located in the San Diego Central Public Library. And before that, she served as the dean of students at Crawford High School. And founding principal of the Millennial Tech School, Middle School. Dr. Griffith has received numerous professional honors in recognition of her transformational work, including, but not limited, to Outstanding Woman Leader in the Field of Education for the 79th District, honored by the California State Assembly in 2018, and Educator of the Year from the California League of Middle Schools in 2010. I could not address all of the things in her bio, so I encourage you to read that, since her work with the low-income first-generation college students overlaps with what we do and who we serve. So please join me in however you do that in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Helen Griffith.
Good morning, and thank you, Molly, for that introduction. I appreciate your kind words, and it's so great to be here to share with our counselors, the backbone of our schools. I love the theme that you all have for the conference this morning, Counseling for Career Resilience. How timely is that right now in light of our current situation? We've been in a worldwide pandemic since the beginning of this year, and life has thrown us the biggest curveball ever. But that word in your theme, resilience, is defined as the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness. How appropriate is that word, resilience, as we approach our work today in this virtual world? After all, here we are in a counselor conference using an online platform as if it were our natural way of doing business. In times past, we'd be gathered together, making connections, brainstorming, collaborating, networking, sharing a meal or two, and yes, even sharing a most needed hug. And boy, do I need a hug today. Anybody out there need a hug? Why don't you just wave your hand like I could see you? Because I know I'm not alone. But today, with or without hugs or our face-to-face gathering, we're charged to come together to become better for the good of our own professional development and for the benefit of all scholars within the sphere of our influence. We're here to become better counselors who are not just counseling for career resilience, but for all resilience. For in my entire educational career, I've had a passion for the underserved, the underrepresented, the voiceless, the misunderstood, those left behind, and those who need a hand up. And I'm sure, like each of you, we have a deep love and a deep commitment to meet the needs of every scholar, regardless of their economic background, their ethnicity, their religion, their gender identity, their sexuality, their race, creed, or color. Working with our scholars means we need to dig deeper, start earlier, and prepare wider. Therefore, the new runway for our work, I believe, is cradle to career. No longer do we just get to prepare scholars for college, get them admitted to college and graduated from college, but we need to make that final handoff to the world of work and beyond. And not just any job, but a place where our scholars can realize their passion, refine their passion, work their passion, and leave a lasting mark in the earth. Therefore, you, Our beloved counselors must be prepared to counsel for resilience, which applies at every level: elementary school, middle school, high school, post-secondary, and beyond. You see, I believe resilience begins as early as infancy and grows from there. We teach our young ones to keep on trying, not to give up, to embrace the difficulties of learning to feed themselves, tying their little shoes, learning to read, write, and compute. And as they grow and develop, we teach them to navigate the difficulties of one day being judged by the color of their skin, or being misunderstood because they identify as lesbian or gay, or being left out because of one's gender or gender identity. We teach them to quickly recover when they are deemed as unintelligent because they speak with an accent because English is not their first language. But I assure you, for every setback, rejection, hardship, or disappointment, counselors must be poised to help our scholars step up, get tough, and recover quickly from the difficulties that we will surely face in life. Now, for this reason, we need a next generation of counselors to arise and take their place. Now, you've heard of the next generation of wireless networks. We started with 1G, and now Verizon just launched 5G. With that said, I'd like to propose to you today that we launch the 5G counselor, equipped with a new and improved set of skills, tools, abilities, and talents, one who is re-energized, repurposed, and set ablaze in order to meet the constant, complex, and ever-changing demands of this fulfilling work. Now, since I'm a teacher at heart, please allow me to outline the characteristics of the 5G counselor who is equipped to counsel for resilience. So our first G is guidance. The 5G counselor is one who provides guidance that trains their scholars to use the missteps of the past as a bright light toward a successful future. Remember, we're talking about counseling for resilience and creating the capacity for one to quickly recover from difficulties and become tough. Especially during this present moment in time and beyond, counselor must provide the type of guidance that helps us see beyond the darkness, to realize that there is always a bright side, that the glass is half full. We don't just have 6 eggs, we have a whole half dozen. The counselor's guidance must ultimately lead us to believe that problems are an opportunity for us to develop endless possibilities. Therefore, counselors, guide them right and guide them well. Now, the second G of the 5G is grit. The 5G counselor for resilience helps others develop that quality known as grit, which is needed to overcome barriers, sidestep obstacles, jump through endless hoops, and climb the many mountains that are placed throughout our life's journey. Now, grit is defined as the perseverance of effort combined with passion in order to reach a term or long-term goal or an end state. So the 5G counselor therefore helps us understand that we cannot achieve resilience unless we develop grit. You see, these are the beautiful twins. We cannot keep going. We cannot keep persisting. We cannot persevere unless we have the capacity to recover from difficulties that we will surely face. In other words, the 5G counselor guides me, guides you, guides us to understand that grit and resilience work together in collaboration in order to get us to our goals and to our end state. Therefore, those two make a beautiful melody. Now, the third G of the 5G counselor is greatness. The true 5G counselor has the ability to bring out the greatness in their scholars. They have the ability to see in others what they don't see in themselves. I had an experience I'd like to share with you as a founding principal of one of the schools I've opened. I had the experience to hire a teacher in one of those schools. She was an outstanding educator. She loved the scholars. She was an expert in content and knowledge. She had empathy. She was culturally proficient, had the ability to work well with all types of learners. She was a mentor teacher, a true collaborator, a visionary, a consummate professional. We opened the school, we were moving along, just getting into a groove. Just when I thought everything was going well, she came and met with me to turn in her resignation at the end of the school year. Now, obviously, you can imagine I was a bit taken back as she explained to me her feelings of inadequacy and the inability to relate to her scholars. And therefore, she said she was leaving the school to become a tutor at one of the test prep organizations. Well, after a long conversation, I accepted her resignation and we respectfully parted. Well, after a few years, I moved to another position, and lo and behold, that teacher was on staff. And as a part of my new role in the first 90 days to begin building relationships, I held one-on-one meetings with every staff member. Well, when reuniting with this teacher, she explained after leaving my school, she had a chance to re-examine her life and her priorities and decided to return to full-time teaching. She went on to state that she finally came to see in herself the greatness that I saw in her, which was the ability to transform lives, empower scholars, and elevate their trajectory to unlimited heights. You see, the 5G counselor, when counseling for resilience, must be able to constantly lift up a mirror before the eyes of their scholars to reflect the greatness that lies within them. You must show them what they may not be able to see yet. Now, the fourth G, you probably guessed it by now, is genius. Now, genius is traditionally defined as exceptional intellectual or creative power or other natural ability. However, when counseling for resilience, especially career resilience, the 5G counselor may want to consider Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. This theory, and I'm sure you all know it, you've studied it in your preparation programs, but this theory, if I could remind you, suggests that traditional psychometric views of intelligence are too limited and that all people have all different types of intelligences. Gardner defined 8 intelligences and recently possibly the addition of a ninth. He purports that in order to capture the full range of abilities and talents that people possess, one should consider a wider spectrum of intelligence possibilities. It is this 5th G that allows counseling for resilience to flourish, as I see it. Further, it allows our scholars to see that their personal genius exists and it's displayed in a variety of creative powers. Gardner's theory allows the 5G counselor to plant the seeds within their scholars that will cultivate a mindset of self-efficacy. They begin to believe and strengthen their full range of talents once these seeds are planted. Therefore, when they meet with difficulty, trouble, conflict, adversity, and yes, failure in school or in their career journey, they have the ability to pull upon their wide range of intelligences and the genius that lies within them. This belief grounds resilience, allowing our scholars to quickly recover, to rise up, to conquer, to excel, advance, and possibly exceed their highest dreams and goals. The 5G counselor is a genius activator whose impact cannot be measured. Now, the final G, the 5th G, I saved it for last because it's possibly my favorite G of all, and that's genuine. The 5G counselor must have 100% unadulterated, uncompromising, unaffected, unconditional, and as the kids say, pure D love for all of their scholars. I think that pure D is pure deep, but pure deep love for all of their scholars. When counseling for resilience, you cannot leave out the power of pure, genuine love as you lead your scholars to their next best self. You show them that love is patient, You show them that love is kind, that love is not jealous, nor is it envious, that love is not rude, love is not arrogant, love does not put another human being down, love is not violent, love does not discriminate, love does not harass, love is not judgmental or dismissive, love tells the truth in love. Love conquers hate. Love believes all things. Love hopes all things. Love endures all things. Love never ends. Pure, genuine love elevates all human beings to an equal and rightful place of privilege, prominence, provision, and power, and propels them to fulfill their unique purpose and their individual destiny. The 5G counselor demonstrates a genuine love for their scholars that is capable of making what seems impossible possible. Now, in closing, because every good lesson plan has a closure, the 5G counselor provides for their scholars guidance. They help them develop grit. They see greatness and reflect the same. They are genius activators, and they genuinely love at all times. This I present to you is the new 5G, and it's the next generation counselor. This is the work. Therefore, I charge you today, to all of us listening, to continue getting it done. And in honor of us surviving the election season, my name is Dr. Helen V. Griffith, and I approve of this message. I'd like to turn it over to Heather. If we have any questions, I'd love to entertain them at this time. And I hope that you have had an awesome conference preparing you to prepare our next generation for the work ahead of them, that they stand on our shoulders and do better than we've done. Thank you for having me today. Heather, I'll turn it over to you or Monica for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Griffith. How inspiring. We have opened up the time for questions for Dr. Griffith. So please, it looks like we have about 150 folks on the line. So thank you so much. Please send your questions through the Q&A or the chat via Zoom or Whova, whichever you prefer. And we'll kind of wait for those to come in. You're getting thank yous. Yes, yes, on the love and a 5G counselor. Amazing, doctor. You're getting lots of applause. So thank you. Keep them coming. Thank you so much for these inspiring words from Rachel. We'll let them kind of roll in. We'll sit tight for a minute if you don't mind. Okay, we do have a question from Michelle. Wonderful message. You're getting lots of love, Dr. Griffith, but we do have a question from Michelle. Dr. Griffith referred to Gardner's theory. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, so I actually in my classroom experience, worked with the theory of Howard Gardner, and there are 8 multiple intelligences. He purports that they're visual spatial, linguistic verbal, interpersonal, intrapersonal, logical mathematical, musical, bodily kinesthetic, and naturalistic. There's actually an assessment, it's a quick assessment that was at high school age appropriate, that I would give my scholars to show them where they had some of their strengths. And they would answer questions like, do you like to read and write for enjoyment? Are you good at puzzle making? Do you like to interpret pictures and graphs? Do you enjoy painting and drawing? Which would be a characteristic of a person who has a strong strength in visual spatial intelligence. And in that assessment, it also had some links to the types of careers that people who are strong in visual spatial would do well in, such as an architect, an artist, or an engineer. And so we would use this work throughout the semester, throughout the year, to number one, empower them that they're smart and they're strong in not just one thing, but many things. Because many people think genius is IQ, and it's that one number. But it was to really empower them to understand who they were as learners. I especially loved when some of my scholars would understand why they like to get up and move, why they like to make beats on the desk. You know, you have that scholar, they're bodily kinesthetic learners. They like to move around. They're skilled at dancing and sports. They have excellent physical coordination. And there are different careers that those types of persons like to go into. But I really love the one where the scholars are very interpersonal, where they love to talk. because those are the teachers in the room. Those are the counselors in the room. And that you don't punish scholars, but you understand those are their strengths and abilities. They're the way they like to learn, the way they like to operate. And so you actually give them space and room to develop in those areas and not to be punitive in those areas, and for them to embrace them. So I really encourage you to maybe get one of his books and read about the theory, because it's very empowering in my experience in terms of having used it in the classroom and also with adults as a leader. Thank you for asking.
You're muted.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Griffith. There's a couple of other questions. The next one, I think it's tied into Partner's theory. You mentioned about the book. They're asking if the 5G plan will be posted on our event website. Do you have, maybe over email, you could send us the link to that book?
I will.
Okay, thank you. There's the third question is, how do our counselor training programs need to change to help prepare and train the next generation of 5G counselors?
Well, number one, I think they need to include more of the mental health, the focus on mental health, more so than socio-emotional. I think they need to go to the next level in terms of understanding that our scholars are a whole person, spirit, mind, soul, and body, and that we have those conversations about how that affects learning and how that affects them in the classroom, how they bring a full story to the learning experience by what happens at home, by any trauma that has come at home. I think we need to look more in the counseling programs at some of the things that affect our scholars today in terms of trauma-informed care. I think our counseling programs, if they're not using restorative justice and restorative practices, need to have that included. It would be nice if we had a teaching college where people, even as early as elementary school, had an interest in teaching or counseling, and they could begin to learn and practice these principles before they even get to college. And so by the time you get to college, you've been immersed in so many experiences around the work that you're learning more theory at the post-secondary level. But also at the post-secondary level, you're getting more opportunities to engage in the work before you finish your coursework. I think in terms of the counseling map now, as I recall, we didn't get any interns until they had finished coursework. And then they came to do the field work long after the coursework was completed or after the coursework was completed. I think the field work should begin much earlier. And our counselors need to be involved in our schools in a variety of settings, because the hands-on learning and to see the real struggle and to be placed under master counselors that are doing the work would be, I think, a good addition to the preparation that we have now. But I think the conversation needs to change a little bit in terms of bringing in some other elements into the counseling preparation. And those are the elements that I bring up in the 5G.
Thank you, Dr. Griffith. There's a couple of other questions. The next one is for students who are struggling to stay motivated. Maybe they had a negative educational experience in the past. What are the first few steps you would recommend to help them get re-engaged?
Well, definitely to begin to peel the onion back. Like I said, our scholars come with experiences depending upon when we get them, and they've been multiple experiences, varied experiences. They could be traumatic experiences, but we need to begin to pull the onion back, the layers back, to find out what is the root source or cause or causes. And then we need to address each of them individually. I started a mental health program at my third school that I opened, and I believe that mental health clinicians, such as professional clinical counselors, which we hired in an MFT, should work in concert with our PPS, our school counselors, so that they could begin to spend the time in pulling those layers back to get to the real issues and to provide the therapy and the counseling, the deep counseling that the PPS doesn't always have time for to do, so that the PPS can then work on the socio-emotional skills as it relates probably more to academics, but that we have these clinicians and therapists on site so that our scholars don't fall through the cracks as we're referring them out. Because you're right, there are negative experiences that can begin as early as kindergarten. I remember I have 3 children of my own. I remember my daughter developed a mathematic phobia because her teacher told her in kindergarten that she couldn't do math. And so we had to undo what was done that year in kindergarten because of the negative seeds that were planted. And so many scholars have challenges that are no fault of their own, but that we need to really, so my bottom line is that we need to spend the time to find out the why for a student is not motivated and not engaged. And then we need to address every issue and every area so that we can make that scholar whole.
Thank you very much for that. There's 2 more questions. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, and I think they're kind of tied. So I'll ask one first, but then I'll continue with the other one. So the first one is, how can 5G be introduced at a middle school level? And then the other one is, you talked about being there from the cradle to career and a soft handoff to the final step. What strategies have you seen work for that final step handoff? Sorry.
So I'll start there and then I'll go to the middle school question. At Preuss, where I work now, we have a 7-year runway. We start at 6th grade to 12th grade. Our scholars come to us a little bit below grade level as measured by the CASP assessment, the Smarter Balanced Assessment in Math and English Language Arts. We do some other diagnostic assessments, but they come to us in 6th grade below grade level. And we have a strong focus on literacy and mathematics interventions in the 6th to 8th grades. By the time they reach the 11th grade, they surpass all schools at about 35% higher in terms of math and English language arts because of the work that's done between 6th grade and 10th grade. And the intense interventions and supports and scaffolds that we put in place for content. But we also have mental health and wellness support on site. We have an MFT, we have clinical psychologists, we have a school psychologist, and of course we have our school counselors. And we have interventions in place to address the socio-emotional, to address trauma, to address the things that they are faced with before they came to us and that they're faced now, especially with scholars, our scholars coming from south of 8, which is where I grew up, and low-income communities, predominantly in San Diego. And then we have a 7-year advisory program. That means they have one class that they stay together in a cohort with the same teacher for all 7 years. And for the most part, all of them stay with those 7 teachers because there's a lot of staff stability. And that advisory class is responsible for AVID strategies in the beginning, developing strong foundational skills in the middle school. But the seed is planted, number one, when they step on campus, that they will be going to college because they're on a college campus. But they do all of the work with parents as well, parent training and bringing the parents along, all of the work from knowing about college, being prepared academically to in the 12th grade, filling out the applications. There's actually a big ceremony that we do, all the financial aid information, doing the college essay, preparing for interviews, and all of the information that they need, college visits. Of course, they're spending time on the UC San Diego campus. And then we do that, we do a big ceremony for signing day, a big celebration there. And then of course, we give them a handoff, a package, which last year I was able to add a computer to the package with school supplies, a college starter kit, their first college shirt. And then we follow them up once they leave us. We need to do a better job at following up because we don't have a full-time person. But what we need to do in terms of that handoff is we need to intensify what happens when they leave us at 12th grade. Because like cradle to career, we think we've done our work if we've gotten them into college, but that's not where it ends. And so my vision is to bring in partnerships, and I've already been in discussion there with corporations that start internships at high school. For example, Qualcomm, we're in conversations with them now, where they'll provide internships, guest speakering, mentoring, and tutoring while these scholars are in high school. When they move to UC San Diego, for example, they'll do internships at Qualcomm, and we're still following them to make sure that they're having the success academically and helping them get their connections made. And then at the end of the college career, when they graduate, then they will have a 6-figure job that they walk into at Qualcomm because Qualcomm has established a relationship with us and the scholars as early as 6th grade. We want to extend those partnerships to other organizations because we know not everyone is going to work at Qualcomm, even though they have a variety of positions from business to, of course, engineering and computer sciences, et cetera. But that's what I see as the handoff, that we need to make it longer. And in my perfect world, we would have a preuss TK that would start us as early as as a 4-year-old, because we know that the data in San Diego says that our 4th grade scholars of color are already behind in math and English language arts by the time they enter 5th grade. So we need to start earlier. We need to close the gap, and we need to widen our reach so that we have not just when I graduate from college, what do I do now? And I'm still floundering, but that we have a place that they have been prepared to go to in terms of career. And when counselors are building in that resilience, when those successes, when those failures, when those setbacks happen, they can recover quickly and take another path because we've given them so many other skills. Now, high school, middle school. So I ran a middle school, and I'm of course running one now that's 6 through 12. And I don't see any difference. We actually use Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences at 6th through 8th grade. We had career exploration in 6th through 8th grade. We also use Teal's inventory of multiple intelligences out of UCLA, which are the pandas, that you actually look at a picture, which determines your multiple intelligences. It's not as read heavy as the other assessment that Gardner uses. So you just pare it down for 6th through 8th grade, but you begin to plant the seeds of grit, perseverance, and begin giving them the tools that they need as early as, like I said, it really begins at infancy. When you have your toddler that's trying to tie their shoes, you're praising them, you're telling them, let's try it again, let's do it over. You're clapping. That really rolls down into, I have grandchildren, that's why I'm really kind of keen on these latest techniques of infancy. But it starts as early as the baby comes out of the womb. Even in nursing, you're encouraging the baby, latch on, honey, you got this, let's do. And I believe all of that matters. All of that matters. So plant those seeds, they're going to grow.
Thank you, Dr. Griffith. Are you okay with another question?
Yes.
Okay, first I'll read a comment from Sandy Gonzalez. She says, thank you for the great work you're doing, Dr. Helen. As a former social worker who worked in the City Heights area, I had students attending your school. I could see scholars thriving and parents taking pride in the education their children are getting. Happy face.
Yay.
Breaking cycles, exclamation point. I'm originally from Southeast San Diego, and
Yay.
Great education, great educators, great counselors make the difference. Education can be a protective factor.
Yay.
So thank you to Sandy for that. And
Thank
I
you,
guess
Sandy.
the last question is, what does genuine love look like in your practice?
I'm so glad you asked.
Well, that was someone from the audience.
I'm so glad they asked.
Yes.
Molly, it looks like. No, is
Well,
that her name?
I
Molly?
think they're coming from the event platform. Molly is helping us coordinate the questions.
Got it. Okay. So glad they asked. In my practice, I actually tell my staff I love them. I tell scholars I love you. And love is action, right? Number one, love is a choice, right? We get to choose who we love, and it's a choice. And I choose to love people that I don't even know. I call it level 1 love, right? And love has levels, right? It gets deeper as you spend time together. And so I tell them I make a choice to love you. And so I actually use the word. I know it's like a 4-letter word, but it's the one to use. And I think we should use it more often and not be afraid of it. I think love is genuine in practice when you treat scholars fairly, when you listen to them, and adults as well. When you listen to them and you let them know you're listening. And then you respond to what they've said by taking action. And then you come back and tell them, you know, I did this based on what you said because I heard you. And I understand you have a voice. Love in practice is validation. Love in practice is keeping your word. Love in practice is being honest. Love in practice is being transparent. Love in practice creates policies and procedures that always have the best interests of the scholars. Love in practice shows them in a tangible way that I am here for you. And love also says, I made a mistake to a child. Please forgive me. I'm sorry if what I said offended you. Love in practice does mediation. So, you know, there's the flag we fly now called restorative justice, but we've been doing that work before the book came out. When there was an issue in my class with two kids or with me and a student, we sat down and we had to make it right. We didn't move on like it didn't happen. We had to make apologies, whether it was an apology from me or from the scholar, to let them know that we are equal human beings that deserve to be respected and loved. At the end of the day, I would tell, when I moved to the dean role and I did a lot of mediation, I would never put scholars back into the classroom until we settled the issue. They meant I had to talk to them one by one. Boy, was it tiring work. What's the problem? What happened? Why did it happen? And you just let them talk. Then you bring in the other one separately. And then you get the story. And then they leave with the understanding of we're going to come back together and we're going to work it out. And you set the ground rules by how we're going to talk. And at the end of the day, I'm not asking you to be in love, but I am asking you to be respectful. And at the highest aim, I would appreciate that you love each other, because we should love all human beings. But at the end of the day, we're going to leave here respectful. You bring the scholars back, you mediate the issue. That's what genuine love looks like. And then if it happened in the classroom, you take them back to the classroom and you bring the classroom together and you settle it with the entire classroom, because they heard the offense as well. When it happens with a teacher and a scholar, as a dean, I would always bring the teacher and the scholar together. First, I had to meet with the student alone, and they had to tell me everything that went on with the teacher. And you have to listen, and you have to kind of help them work through that and understand, well, maybe things could have been done differently by you, and give them the empowerment to say, if it happens again, these are some different tools. Then you bring the teacher in alone, and you say, okay, we got to get a little Timmy on our team. We're going to meet together, and this is what we're going to do. Because sometimes teachers can blow the mediation. Oh, so you have to prepare the teacher to come into the meeting to understand that our goal here is to get you guys on the same team, and to walk out of the room and to have them support you and you support them. You bring the teacher and the scholar together, you mediate that conversation, and then you send them back into the environment. And then you do the thing over and over again. But that's what genuine love looks like. Love takes time. Love spends time. Love is patient, it's kind, and it's all those things that I shared with you that we have to do in practice. And it takes work. And sometimes we don't get it right, because guess what? We're not perfect. We're all a work in progress. But love says, I'm sorry, forgive me. Would you give me another chance? I want to get it right next time.
Thank you so much. Someone, Jocelyn Hill, said, love it, love in practice.
Yes. Yes.
And the person who asked the other question was Robert Corona, one of our K-12 pathway coordinators.
Awesome.
Yes. Any other questions, Molly, on the HUVA? We'll give it a couple of seconds, Dr. Helen. Nope. Thank you so much on behalf of all of us at the Regional Consortium for the San Diego and Imperial Community Colleges. Thank you, Dr. Helen. We loved this. This could have not ended more perfectly, to be honest.
Awesome. Well, I hope you're all inspired, energized, because where we are right now is a tough place. But you are holding up such a bright light for our scholars as counselors, and we couldn't love and appreciate you more.
Yes, thank you. So before we end the conference, again, a lot of you guys know my name. Now you see the face to the name. My name is Monica Rosas. With Heather, we're part of the San Diego and Imperial Community Colleges Regional Consortium. We handle K-14 events for educators, counselors, and whatnot. And we also do some work-based learning for the districts in both counties. We wanted to just remind you guys and encourage you to follow us on our social media accounts. We want to thank you all for being here, and we also wanted to share our two websites. These are awesome for counselors. So myworkforceconnection.org is where you guys can find all of the resources that we are posting on this event platform. And then careered.org, that's a great site for when you're doing the one-on-one counseling with students and parents. So it has information about all of the priority sectors and where career education programs are found for in every one of the 10 colleges. And And I think that's it. Another thing we wanted to say, you guys will still have access to the event platform for the next 2 months. So in case you're super tired, because I know we packed a lot of information in these 2 days, you can always go back and for the next 2 weeks and download any documents. Remember that everything is found in the agenda on each session. Just scroll down and you'll be able to download the presentations, any handouts. But you can also go to the quick access that's on resources. In the video gallery, all of the videos, and in the document section, all of the career ed guides, the handouts, and again, all of the brochures and the materials that were provided by our awesome presenters on each session. Last but not least, before we close off, if any of you are interested in receiving physical copies of the Career Ed Guide and the Priority Sector handouts, in our homepage of the event, there's a Google link. It's actually a Google Sheet. Just register there and we'll coordinate on how to get those to you following the proper COVID procedures. But again, on behalf of everyone in our staff at the San Diego and Imperial Community Colleges Regional Consortium, we thank our keynote, our EndNote, Dr. Mary Walshock and Dr. Helen Griffith, all of our 50-something presenters, and all of you guys for joining us on this wild virtual roller coaster. We're super, super thankful. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and happy holidays. Thank you, Dr. Griffith.